on the screen.
I'm just waiting for Bronwyn to hand over the. I know she's a bit stuck in a meeting.
So Tracy, yes. I've got a visual I want to put up on the screen, and I also think you as
Viv, there's quite a bad echo. Everybody just mute.
I'd like to ask
you to mute?
Yeah, if you can all mute for now.
And then Bronwyn did say, I did get your email, but I don't have control. So Bronwyn's got to give me control.
Okay. Okay, but it's not in the beginning. It's maybe after 10 minutes. Okay.
Hi everyone. Brandon asked me that I'll take over on that, so I'll be admitting everyone who's on the lobby.
Thank you. Because they can also look at you. My 1+5 clicks glasses. I don't know if it's causing a glare, but I see a lot of you are also needing the +1 or 2 glasses nowadays. We're not getting younger, are we? Ah, it's terrible. Okay, I see we've got 2 minutes past 4 already. Can you all hear me very clearly? I would like you all to mute your mute there at your side so that we just have the best possible audio. Can you hear me very clearly? Okay. Yes. All right. Okay, so good afternoon, everybody, every amazing living creature. Okay, so you are enrolled to the HIC, which is the Hardwires Interpretation Coach certificate. Okay, so you will see that I like to make up some words and I like to come up with funky words so that nothing is too academic and too serious in life. And you are enrolled to the HIC program, and next to me is a newcomer. His name is Dikopo.
Hello, everyone.
Dikopo is going to also act as the as an administrator for A2B. So the sooner you know his face, he's a very, very pretty guy. Smile, just let's show your meno. Meno is teeth in Sotho. Okay, so he's showing your meno. Okay. And he's going to be the go-to person when you can't get hold of me, because I know last year everybody was fighting with me that you couldn't get hold of me. I was in lockdown in Lesotho. And I was really in lockdown, and I'm still in lockdown. I still can only get through the border for essential services. So I have to make all sorts of plans to call myself an essential service provider when I want to try to get out of the borders. Okay, but so today is really where we get started and where we're going to go deep. So the first thing I want to say about this course is that you are learning to become an interpreter, okay? And your ability to interpret the hardwire is going to have power behind it. It can't just be a theoretical exercise. There's got to be something behind it, inspiration, and something else that is going to get the human that is listening to this and that's listening to the interpretation to actually crack into consciousness, and that's your second word for the day, your second funky word, and that's called kick. So you are on the hick so that you can learn how to do the kick. Cracking into consciousness. Okay, so cracking into consciousness is what the whole problem in the world is, for starters. So the way the brain works, if you want to get a person to learn something or to do something competently, then the brain needs to actually first become conscious of the challenge. So everything in life is a challenge to which you need to respond. So those are the principles, the fundamental principles of life and everything else, the life, the environment, and for you to grow towards becoming a sustainable being. I just want to ask you to put off your audio, please. There's a lot of feedback in the channel. All right. Okay. And if you get in life, everything in life is about challenges. Since the day you're born, it's all about responding to challenges, the ability to respond. Since the baby is born, he's hearing sounds through his senses, and through those senses, he tries to make sense of the world, whether he is or she is safe or unsafe, or whether she is okay or he is okay, or whether he is not okay. And that is eventually going to translate into I can, the message in your brain, I can, or the message in your brain, I can't. Those are the fundamental 101, a baseline understanding on which we are building and growing the principles of human optimization, or understanding how to actually move a human from dependency to dignity. It's all about challenge and response, and how that response is. And that is why there's a 7-point scale to measure on what level is the human's responsiveness. And the more we understand responsiveness, the more we will actually know why is a person not listening to me, or why is somebody not responsible, because his ability to respond is affected. And we've got to know then and be able to see on what level of responsiveness is that person. And then why is that person not responding on a higher level? We can't just assume. Most people in the workplaces, they appoint people and then they assume that they should be competent. They assume, and you can't assume that the person must respond in an able way. There is a lot of factors that is affecting the responsiveness levels, okay? And the reason why we're doing this course is because we have realized that if we start understanding the blockers of responsiveness, then we can actually rewire that brain so that we can create new neural pathways, so that we can have enabling response-able responses. And that's what it's all about. Okay, so the hardwires are coming from somewhere. We already understood that hardwires are wires in your brain that are formed from childhood due to the fact that you had the message, those messages. So since the day you were born, you had one of two messages. Hello, Mr. Masibani, my HR manager also arrived. I'm so happy. Okay, cool. So those messages, so there's only the two messages, I am safe or I am unsafe, since the day the little baby is born. And those messages gets translated into I am okay or I'm not okay. In other words, the world doesn't love me, the world doesn't like me. And I get that message through my senses. And that translates later to I can or I can't. And in everything and in every moment, you are supposed to see it playing out in front of your eyes. And with big people and adults, or with small people being children, it is the same thing. We are the whole time exposed to that message in our brain that is actually through the senses sending the message to our primitive brain, which is our lower brain, and that's giving us that message, I'm safe or I'm not safe. And when I am not safe and I'm feeling or I'm perceived that I'm not safe, then I'm going to go into my which is my fear, my fight, my flight, my self-preservation. And all these other, what we call the fizz of the primitive brain, is going to start manifesting in you, and you're going to start creating hardwires. That is self-preservation, patterns of reasoning, or patterns of thinking, or coping skills, or whatever you want to call it, to actually try to self-preserve you. All right, so hardwires are therefore directly linked to the primitive brain, and that is something you have to fundamentally understand. All right, and we are going to talk a little bit deeper about the primitive brain, and we're going to see how that whole lower brain, that whole primitive brain, is actually our biggest enemy, and that is our carnal self, if I can call it like that. And that is where all the bad stuff happens, and the addictions, because it deals with impulses and compulsions. It deals with your breathing. It deals with your heat regulation. So if you are scared or nervous or anxious, you will find that you've got your whole body goes. There's a autonomic nerve system that is dealing with heat regulation, and that's dealing with breathing. And you'll know when you get more anxious, your breathing patterns are going to go slower. So the more we understand that, the more we breathe in and out. So when I'm anxious in front of a lot of people, all I will do is I'll say to all of you, so please do that for me. I'm looking at you. So I want you to breathe in and out, and you're going to breathe very, very deep in, because we have to get a lot of oxygen inside our body and inside our bloodstream that goes into your primitive brain, and that relaxes it. So if you can overflood it with oxygen, you're already going to put that primitive brain a little bit at ease. So will you please, after me, breathe in, but you must whistle and say, A2B, and A2B, and A2B. So the ability for you to always stay in that state of breathing, but that is why it's so important that we must do exercise, and that we must have hobbies where we're in the nature and we do a lot of walking and doing things that creates breathing, or swimming, because it creates a lot of breathing. There's a very nice video that I can send you about Mr. Wim Hof, a Dutch man that is doing crazy things in the snow and in the ice and in very cold places. And he actually helps people get totally out of their anxiety disorders or out of their depressions, because what he has realized, he was just an ordinary guy who had a wife that suffered from depression, and then she died. And he then became depressed himself, and he couldn't get over it. And then one day he went to a dam, or a type of a dam area, but it was cold, it was winter time, and he was sitting on a bench next to the dam, and he could not get himself back on track in life, being so down and depressed because of his wife. And then he almost lost consciousness, and he slipped and he fell into that water, and it was ice water. And it was a very crazy experience for him. But when he got out of that water, he realized in that same day and the next day that he's feeling better, and that his depression is subsiding. And then he started researching what exactly happened to me, because I'm feeling better. I'm not drinking medication. I'm doing nothing, but I'm feeling better. And when he started doing the research, he realized that that absolutely shock. Think for yourself, when you jump into icy cold water, how is your breathing going to be? You're going to be like, you're going to breathe like that. You're going to, and it's going to put so much oxygen into your body, and it's going to put you into another state, and it's going to work on your primitive brain. So this whole hardwire course, under the underlying component of it, is your primitive brain that is causing these wiring, these warped patterns, these bondages, these strongholds, these stuff. that makes you not to get to optimum human. So your primitive brain is an impulse driven. It just looks at the fight and flight response, and it deals with breathing, and it deals with heat regulation. So, but it's not such a bad thing. All of us, when I start teaching about the primitive brain, then you all hate your primitive brain, and then you wish you can do an operation and just remove this damn primitive brain, because it is the impulse compulsion component and the fear component that we don't want in our lives. We want to be free. We want to be eagles. We want to be totally open. We don't want to have all sorts of blockages and limiting beliefs and things. We don't want to have these things in us. We want to be like the child, that early childhood state, that 3 years of age state that we were in. We were not scared. We had that, I can, let's do it. And we were failing forward, and we were not scared to fail, where we didn't have this thing called shame. But now when we grew up, we became this total hardwired humans that experience shame when we make a mistake. Isn't that crazy? So you must realize that adulthood is really overrated. I don't buy into adulthood. So by the way, I hope when I'm 80 or 90, you'll still see me very playful person, and that I actually by that time have removed most of my hardwires, so that I can be as free and as open, so that I can have no prejudice and bias and limiting beliefs, so that I don't see myself as white or black or big or small, that I'm just a human being under construction, and that I actually fail forward, and that I embrace the challenges of life. And that is what we are trying to achieve. So what exactly is that end result that we are trying to get to? So I just have to get back. I'm always going to ask you the words. What is the ER? What is the ER? And the ER stands for end result. So what is the ER of optimum humanness? What exactly is that? We always have to go back there, because if we don't know what is the destination point of being human on this earth, we will go nowhere slowly. If we don't know, if we want to get ourselves to another country, then we've got, and the aeroplane pilot has to put in the GPS coordinates of the end result, the destination point. Otherwise, the aeroplane will fly somewhere in the air and end up in the black hole or wherever, but it won't get to the destination. And I think that is the biggest mistake we make as human beings, that none of us really are busy every single day of thinking, what is my ER? What is my end result? What is my end result in a year? Yes, maybe you are doing some goal setting in the beginning of every year and say, oh, my New Year's resolution is the following. But let me tell you, if you don't understand it deeper, and if you don't neuroscientifically change your hardwires, you can never get there. You will fight a losing battle against your hardwires, because they are the blockers that's going to prevent you from getting to that New Year's resolution. And it's going to prevent you from really getting to that optimum human that is the reason why you're on this earth. Because after all, we're not on this earth for a job. We're on this earth for a purpose. We think we are here to, we're going to get to our good grades so that we can get a good job. And then we just actually go down and we hardwire even more. And we get ourselves into this comfort zone state. And we never get to understand what is optimum human. And the 3 words that I'm teaching you in this course, that every time I'm going to ask you that, then you're going to answer me, and you must go deeper to try to understand what these words are. To become the most responsive, that's your first word. Responsive. In other words, response-able. Able to respond. So there's a non-able and an irresponse of a non-responsiveness. Then there's an able responsiveness when it comes to everything in life that you are occupying yourself with. in your life, all the challenges, every single thing that comes your life, to you, you need to be able to respond. And it takes a lot of volition. It's an energy of your mind to be able to respond to that. And you cannot respond in an able way if you are blocked by hardwires. Your hardwires will warp you into a lopsided way of reasoning about it. You won't be able to do the thing right as well as the right thing, to be able to see the small picture of it and to be able to see the big picture. That's what we call the whole brain reasoning ability. So to become the most responsive, the next word is to become the most adaptive. In other words, doesn't matter whether the tsunami of life comes and you lose your job or all these terrible things happen. And I'm telling you, you cannot hide from the terrible things in life. You've got to learn to embrace it. You've got to learn to fly above the storm like an eagle. You've got to learn to say, bring it on, baby. I've got enough neural pathway networks and ability to respond. And I can adapt. I'm not maladaptive. So people who are just wanting structure and when new things come, they are getting so upset and they can't cope. It's all maladaptive brain responsiveness. So to become the most responsive, most adaptive, and most contributive human on this earth. So we don't just want to be consumers. Consumerism is the opposite of contributive. Consumer, to be able to grab and to take and see what you can get out of life. And me, what can I, what can I get? Give me more, I want to be a have. Consumer is just consumer. But a contributor is when you are beyond that, where it's not about you, it's about making the world a better place and contributing on whichever way, and all of us. And that is where your purpose comes in. We start growing out of your comfort zone, because no growth can happen in comfort zone, as I taught you last time, where you can grow out of your comfort zone, where the neural pathways grow, because that's where neural pathways grow, when you get a challenge which you've never done before and you accomplish the challenge and you say, I can, and the neural pathway grows in the brain, and every day you grow new neural pathways and your I can moments just get better and better and better. And that is where you actually eventually start getting to a state where you start realizing, who am I? You know, it took me, I don't want to admit, but 50 something years to figure this out. Why did somebody not teach this to me when I was in school? Why was this not fundamentals in learning life, to find out who am I really? And I had to go through all these school of hard knocks, full of hardwires, making so many mistakes, getting to a point where I can now contribute my learnings from my own experiences to you, and helping you to be the change you want to see in the world. And so that you eventually become this trainer of trainers, and you start interpreting and helping people to not make the same mistakes, and that we can help people rewire their hardwires that blocks them from the optimum human. So those are the 3 ones we are getting to. Okay, so now, then, are you please saying after me? I want you to say after me, adulthood is overrated. Let us be a child, and let us always be on a journey of exploration and experiential learning, because that's where these hardwires in you will break faster. Because when you experience something, that is why you'll find me. I'm not a culture. You can't put me into a culture. You can't put me into a specific religion. You can't put me into a specific box, because I'm a human being that is ever evolving and under construction. And that's not going to be limited by things where I can learn and experience the truth, because the truth only comes out through experience, because you get a conviction that this is true because I have experienced it. Don't tell me the theory. Show me your experience. Show me your experience, and that breaks Hardwires. So we've got to eventually get there. And if you guys are going to go on later and you want to be part of the revolutioning journey, the journey where you actually help break the patterns and break the Hardwires, that's where you will learn how to give people challenges so that they actually change and they develop. But that's not what this course is all about for now. Okay, so adulthood is a trap, and man is not who he think he is. So don't bring me your CV. It's going to help me nothing. Let me just put you into a few experiences. And that is what we do within ecosystem organizations like what we do here with AfriSki and all the places that is implementing this methodologies. Is the CV is always less important than the Hardwire report. And to put a person into a few challenges just to see exactly how does the Hardwires play out, because after all, the Hardwires are going to be the things in your workplace. So your knowledge and your theoretical exams never addressed your Hardwires. That's just knowledge-based stuff. But when you put a person into a task, you're going to see exactly what's happening. So, Mr. Masibani, have you had a few experiences now in the last day where people are fighting and running out and they're not producing and they are not optimum in their workplaces? And what is that? Is it because of what?
Hardwires.
Nothing else than Hardwires. And when you see the Hardwires playing out, we don't have to give people any more disciplinary warnings and even hardwire them even more and get their primitive brain to be even more in self-preservation. No, we can have a whole different approach in the workplace. We can help them to know themselves and to know their Hardwires, because if they know their Hardwires, then we can say, okay, what happened here? This Hardwire is clashing against this Hardwire. And we had a fantastic example of students that were here, and then our manager asked them to make a little box because it was raining, so we gave them a challenge and we got them into the workshop, and we got them to make boxes because I realized my housekeeping division is having these white Glodina towels that they are discarding, and I'm wondering why they're discarding the towels, and I'm realizing because it's raining so much here at the mountain, and the guests come in and they take the white Glodina towels and they wipe their feet with my white Glodina towels. So I realized I'll have to put a little boxie in the entrance with a little cloth and a little message to say, this is your boxie for wiping your feet. And then we got the students to do that. And then the students were totally they had no experience. They had never done it before. And then they made a total mess of those boxes. And then here comes the manager and he freaks out, because they messed up his materials, they messed up his screws, they messed up his tools, and they spent a whole day, 15 people times 8 man hours, messing up the whole process. And what happened? The students all went into their primitive brain. He's ugly with us. He's ugly. In the meantime, they are on A1 level. I mean, we can see that what they did, they were like children playing with clay. They didn't know what they didn't know. They were unconscious of their incompetency. They were on A1 level in their responsiveness towards the challenge. And then what did he do? He freaked out because he is a very, you're going to still learn about the Z and the Zo brain. He's more Z. So everything is about, you didn't follow the process and you were, and then his Hardwires played out against their Hardwires, and it was a whole big mess. And only when we can actually talk to each other on Hardwire levels, then we'll really solve the problem. Okay, so we're going to start with the primary Hardwires, and we're going to first explain to you how the whole score chart works, and I'm going to ask Bronwyn or whoever that's got that document to just put it up on the screen, please, and then I'm going to show you how the report works. Most of you probably already did your Hardwires, and then you would have received it. Somebody has got a audio on. Okay, so there is the way your Hardwire report would look like. Okay, so one person in this audience was so kind to allow me to use their Hardwire score. And you will see if we just, if we can just go a little bit on, you can see that there's the red, the yellow, and the green. Okay, so let us just discuss the red and the yellow and the green. So your Hardwires would play out, your results would play out. The first one would be off the chart because it is a little bit something different. It's got to do with your 2 and 3 and 4 dimensions of your brain. So that is the Z and the ZO, and that is in the black. The green stands for that emerging. It stands for, hey, you have a Hardwire. But it's not so serious, but it's there. Take note of your Hardwire. It's not zero, it is there. So you mustn't think like in the school where you get marks or anything when you look at this. A Hardwire is a Hardwire. It's a pattern of thinking. It's a reasoning style. It's something that blocks you. So the green, we usually say, if you become at least aware of your Hardwire, then you see it's in the green, then you start asking about it, and then you can read books about it, and then you can actually maybe if you are into these things, you could maybe help yourself to fix that and to get rid of that Hardwire if it's in the green. But it usually, I'm of the opinion that you are going to take at least a year to get that green Hardwire sorted out. It is not just there and say, no, my Hardwire is in the green, I don't have to worry. It is emerging and it is going to grow. It is there. So something is creating that Hardwire. It could be the environment. We call it the ecosystem. It could be the environment that you are in, and you will find how Hardwires change when you change your ecosystem or your environment. Sometimes you've got no choice because you have to behave in a certain way, and then that Hardwire is just getting bigger and bigger. And then you've got to make a very hard choice whether you want to get out of that environment or not. But the green is something that it's not so severe. It won't play out so hard, but it is there, and you've got to take note of it. The yellow is serious already. It's quite serious. It is something that it's going to take you at least 24 months of hard, dedicated work in self-development, and to have a buddy system. And a buddy system is not just anybody that helps you to make you accountable or make you aware, or it's somebody who understands Hardwires, because the problem is that a lot of us who work in the field of human development, we are too soft on each other. We call it rescuers. We are scared that person is going to be scared. So we rather quickly help that person, and so we rescue because of our own Hardwires and our own primitive brain that is sensing that the other one is not feeling good. So now we go rescue that person, or we do something for that person. And that is, the helping profession is very, very guilty of that. And so you need a very hardcore, tough love type of person who is tough love. But the only love that really is real love is corrective, tough love. There is no such thing as when you just help. That is usually what we call the victim type of love. You want to be liked by others. I mean, we should not be on that level where it's important that people must just like us. I mean, that is an insecurity and inferiority complex situation we are in, and we're going to still understand what Hardwire plays out, where it's so important for you to have affirmation and to be liked by others. You've got to be tough and strong if you really want to help human beings. For years in my initial profession as an occupational therapist, I was this helper and this nice person. Let me tell you, it's not nice to be nice. You've got to be tough, love, if you want to create change. You cannot rescue people, and you've got to work with the truth, and the truth will set people free, and you need tools for that. And that is why this whole organization is developing tools to make it a little bit easier for you to be a tough love provocateur of change. And if a person is in the yellow, they need a provocateur, they need somebody who is preferably qualified in hardwire rewiring. We call it the revolution journey. To actually help that person over 24 months to break that pattern and to rewire. Let me tell you, you can eat much less unhealthy food and drink much less unhealthy drinks, and you can put your money into a coach that helps you to change, because when you start getting at the other side of that hardwire, you actually get into something that is called your purpose. If you look at some of these hardwires, the other side of the hardwire, so it's a damaged ruler, or it is a damaged a teacher or whatever. So if you start looking at what really is that gifting, that real gifting that is damaged, and now it plays out in a hardwired pattern that is actually destructive to self and to the people that you love the most, usually the people that you love the most. So that's your yellow one. Then the red one is, if your hardwire is in the red, then it is really a very deep-rooted, deep-wired bunch of ways of reasoning and thinking and pattern and default behavior that is so deep-rooted, it became such a deep, chronic habitual thing that it is very, very, very hard work. The first thing that is wrong when you've got a red hardwire, the first question I would always ask is, I will try to find out what is the ecosystem that person is in. Now we've got all these different ecosystems. So if you're still in your parents' house, that is an ecosystem. When you are married and you are living by yourself with your family, that is an ecosystem. When you're having, let's say, a social group or that you belong to, that you participate a lot in, that is an ecosystem. When you have a workplace that is taking 8 hours of your time, and some of you are workaholics, so that is a hardwired pattern, you will spend so much more time in that ecosystem. And those ecosystems are very big culprits to actually keep you in that state. And we find, if I look at some communities, how bad that community is, how bad that ecosystem community is, and how whilst you stay in that ecosystem, you cannot change the person. Forget it, he's going to fall back into that patterns. So in that case, that is why the whole A2B movement has got this model called the Eagle Hubs model, so that one can create environments or ecosystems of change, as opposed to ecosystems of chance, where things are left over for chance, so that life just messes you up all the time, where it's a pre-designed environment, an ecosystem for change, so that we can change workplaces into ecosystems for change, where there's no ways that a human gets disempowered, and where there's specific methods and modus operandis to actually move that human forward on the scale from A to B, so that a human doesn't go stuck and become complacent and get into comfort zone and stuff that just makes him to go back into hardwires like the naughty child syndrome and the bad attitudes and all these other hardwires that's typical of complacent environments. So if it's in the red, you must know that it's a 5-year medium term or maybe sometimes lifelong process. It's not just a rehab program and then you throw the person out into the world. Why do the rehab programs so often fail? Because of exactly this. They haven't focused on the hardwires of the humans, and they haven't put that whole long-term process in place of rewiring, the revolution journey that helps that human to the whole time break that pattern and build new patterns. Remember, as I said in the beginning, this is all based on neuroplasticity, an application of neuroscience. Neuroplasticity is proving over and over now that the brain is neuroplastic. It's got the ability to form new neural pathway networks, but those deep-rooted red and yellow ones, they lie very, 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 very deep there. You cannot with a short-term program change them. It's a long-term type of process of actually, and then at some point in time when that human is understanding these things from the onset, because every human you work with must understand his own hardwires. He's got to take ownership. You can't be the therapist or the coach that applies certain techniques on a person. That human must learn these things. That human must own these things. That human must be the whole time cracked into consciousness and helped and then crutched for competence. So all these ways that we actually help the human so that he eventually becomes whole again. And let me tell you, this is the time where we're going to start seeing miracles in humans. If we start taking the human mind, brain and spirit serious, and know that we can't just do these little superficial, little nice, hand out little parcel, food parcel key things and call ourselves some NGO and think we're going to make change. I'm telling you, we're creating bigger and bigger hardwires, and you'll still see which hardwires we form when we are helping in ways that is not helping. And without being that tough love provocateur, it's not going to make the change. Okay, so let's just go on, and now we're going to talk about primary, secondary, and tertiary hardwires. So if we can just page on. Okay, so I just want to show you something there.
Sorry, Vivian.
Hello.
I can't see anything. Or is it just me?
No, I can't see anything either.
I can see
Oh
it.
no, man! What? Press the right knob there and to see.
I can also see.
Can you see?
I can see. I can see.
So just to give to keep within our time frame, what I'm going to do is that, but all of you are going to have exactly this when you do your hardwires. So this is just somebody's hardwire report that we used, and you will see that there's already a second. Can we put it back on the screen? There's already a second report you can see in this person's case. So 2 years, it seems to me 2 years ago, she did the first report, the assessment, and 2 years later, after she's been on a program, A2B program, she's done a report again. And but that we'll discuss in our last sessions, where we compare how humans change and what made them to change, what created the tipping points and what created the new wiring that creates the change. So we'll just address that a little bit, but it's not part of this program specifically. But you can see that there's 2 reports already, and that shows that this person, you can now do comparative studies to see which of these hardwires changed. And I don't even want to discuss this one report because I'm going to get tears in my eye, I'm going to get tears in my eyes, because it is just incredible what happened already in this person's life. And there's so much depth when you start just looking at this report. I can tell you, without knowing the person, I can tell you everything about that human and what did change. That will explain once you really can read these reports very deeply. Okay, so let's carry on. Let's just page on with it, and now we're going to get to primary, secondary, and tertiary hardwires. So you'll see on the report you get, there's like on page 4, you'll see all the hardwires. It just gives a small little definition of it. Just page on, page on, page on. Thank you. More. And then it brings you to a next page that's got go on. And then it takes you to a page where it's got the blocks of primary, a little bit more, primary, secondary, and tertiary. So let's start with the definition of primary, just more, a little bit more, until you see the green, orange, and yellow page. There you go. Okay, so on that page you can see primary, secondary, and tertiary in the blocks. Okay, and primary hardwires. So when we do interpretation, we are going to ask them to put that page in front of them, or to print that page out, and then we're going to first look at the primary hardwires. Okay, so what does primary mean? Primary hardwires means where the hardwires that you now have come from. So secondary hardwires are the hardwires that you now have in your brain, okay? The hardwires you now have is the secondary hardwires. Primary is where those hardwires come from, where they derived from, what caused them to be inside your brain, okay? So, and then the secondary hardwires, as I said, is what is how you are behaving and how your hardwires are manifesting in your reasoning style and the way you walk and you talk. And you might be calling it your personality. Yes, it is the personality for the time and for the moment. But those people who knew me from many years and many moons ago, you will see that my personality has changed radically. So that is why I said to you that these personality tests are nice to have, but if we don't go to the root cause of what actually causes our behavior, then we will think we are just like set in stone, and that our whole who we are is just set in stone, and then we won't even know that our brains are neuroplastic and that we can reinvent ourselves. So, and that is why I'm not a supporter really of the personality tests as such. Although the Enneagram has got amazing information that one can use as a type of a support to your thinking. But when it comes to transformation of humans, you've got to get to the root cause where the problem lies, okay? So primary hardwire, so in primary hardwires, we talk about nature and we talk about nurture. So 50% of who you are is now confirmed by the neuroscientists, comes from your DNA, it comes from your nature. Your nature is the DNA, the package deal of genes that you got between your mother and your father. And it's microbiology and those type of subject matters. They can explain to you why your sister got certain genes and you got other genes. But the one thing that I am focusing on is on behavioral change and on optimum human and on changing human to get out of all those bondages and those stucknesses. And the very important component of the DNA side is that those things that you did when you conceived a child, that is part of your primitive brain, and that's dealing with anxieties and depressions and impulses and compulsions, which is fears and frustrations and food addictions and smoking addictions and any other addictions and obsessive compulsive, I must clean, and all those addictive type of impulse compulsion stuff that is lying, that is controlled by the primitive brain. You know, even addictions like gambling, like any type of I must do it type of things, like pornography is an addiction. All those addictions, they actually get transferred to your next generation, and that becomes part of your DNA package deal that you get. So that's why I'll always say to my daughter, hey, Lily, you better not make babies now because you are not ready to transfer good DNA into that next generation. You better first quickly fix up that primitive brain of yours. And it's so true when you start understanding how those things actually come through to the next generation. And you are sitting as a human with that disadvantage from what you got from the DNA, and you can do nothing about it. It's just so sad how life works. The sins of the parents. And then the next 50% is the nurture. And the nurture is mainly parenting. And it's the most crucial time is the first 7 years. And then you start passing on your child to school and to all sorts of other ecosystems that could having a good or bad or ugly effect also on your child in that process. So let us then go into the first one, and we're going to focus on nurture first. So today I'm going to focus firstly on nurture, and nurture is then parenting. So parenting is the biggest reason for disempowerment. It's the mother of all disempowerment that you can get. And we are all so ignorant when we have children. The child doesn't come with a manual, and we don't know, and we think it's about cleaning the poefdoeke and the clothes and the food and the what and putting the child in the right school, and then we're making a very big mistake. It is about that message of I'm safe and I'm okay and I can. or the alternative one. So in the way you touch your child, every single sensory awareness, every single noise, every single everything, that child is building that message. I'm not okay, or I'm okay. And that is what parenting is not even understanding. And to me, it's so sad to see in the communities. Yeah, in Lesotho, I've been asking, is there any courses for parenting? Because it's the most important training and teaching that there should be in the world. Is there anything? Nobody knows that if there's any training in parenting, how to understand what is conducive parenting, how to raise an eagle. If you ask, do you want to have an eagle little baby, or do you want a chicken baby? No, I want an eagle baby. But nobody knows how to raise that eagle. Nobody knows how to do it in the first years. So we are all ignorant and we're all full of mistakes. And that's where massive, massive, massive trauma, childhood trauma happens. So I'm going to also send you another video. So please, I don't know who's going to take responsibility for creating a WhatsApp group. Then I can feed you with some complimentary videos or that complements the talk and the training that you can go deeper if you would like to. So please put up your hand. There is a little hand thingy here that you can use. You can put up your hand for me, okay? And then then, aha, who's that? Moy, thank you very much. Okay, so unconducive parenting is the first most crucial reason that causes the hardwires that we have today in how we are today. And then that is a nurture. So the second nurture is abuse. Now abuse is indirectly also stemming from unconducive parenting, because if parents know how to manage boundaries, proper boundaries, if you look at abuse, physical, sexual, emotional, digital, verbal, you can actually see how it is lack of boundary setting by parents in the first years and teaching their children to set their own boundaries. And there's a fantastic book called Boundaries that I can also send you that was very much influencing also my thinking, that shows how little girls that get sexually abused in schools and so on, it all shows back to parenting, because they never learned boundaries. They never understood how to set their boundaries. They didn't know these things. And when we are too busy and when work is more important than parenting, and we dump the child into some ECD, we are already set our child for abuse. And whose fault is it? Parent. You are responsible for that child. You produce that child, nobody else. You cannot blame the school, you cannot blame the ECD, you cannot blame anything. When your uncle, that is not a good influence, that is maybe the bad sheep in the family, comes into the house, I mean, social workers who are sitting in this audience will all know about these things, and comes and sexually abuses their own little cousin in their own family home, and you look at where all those abuse and things comes from, you will find it. If the parent was more conscious and competent and understood their role to be a conducive parent that is conscious and competent in their role, these things will not happen. And I am putting my hand up just as much to blame. We are so ignorant and we don't understand these things. So I'm so hoping out of this audience that we will get somebody that is going to take these parenting courses to a whole different level, and that you can actually start realizing that there's no more important than taking teenagers and these humans that are ready to start going that route of making babies, that we teach them the truth of the matter of what it is to be a parent. Okay, so then abuse. So abuse just exacerbates the hardwires that you will have. So some cultures are already so entrenched in their abusive patterns, they think it's their new normal. They think it's okay to just be abusive, to scream and to fight and to scream the whole time on each other and stuff like that. Where verbal abuse is an emotional trauma to a small little vulnerable human's brain, and it causes so much, I'm not okay and I'm not safe, and I'm not okay and I'm not safe. Why do you think do we have, especially in South Africa, if you look at the hardwire reports averages, you will see that the hardwire patterns of victim, and especially victim, which is a secondary hardwire that forms because of this unconducive parenting. It is sky high. It is like sick. how high it is, and we don't go back to the cause of this whole problem and actually start focusing to change the world there where we have to change it. Okay, so that is then your nurture hardwires that is playing a massive role. Okay, but then there's the one more hardwire I will discuss for today, and that is your nature hardwire called Z and ZO, and that is the one that's off the chart, and that is in the black. Okay, so that hardwire Z and ZO is actually your what they call lateralization. It is your higher brain. It is your new cortex, they call it. And in your higher brain, where all the different types of two-dimensional intelligence, three-dimensional and four-dimensional intelligence sits, it actually has got two distinct different ways of reasoning, but they are the Z, which is the zoom in or the small picture or the analytical part of your brain, or what they will call the rational part of the brain, which is stimulating by the school system, is only two-dimensional. It's actually quite a low intelligence because it cannot save you. It makes you a workhorse. It makes you a person who systematically, step by step, structure, sequentially sorting, we call it the SSSS of your brain. It's your two-dimensional component. It is a critical component and intelligence, the two-dimensional, the Z intelligence, for performing tasks. It's there to perform tasks. It's there for you to be able to get to task completion point. It's there for you to analyze, to zoom in. That's why it's called Z, zoom in. To zoom in order to make sense of the world, in order to see what is the fault or the problem, so that your ZO side, which is collectively your whole brain, so that your ZO side can then kick in thereafter to come up with a solution that actually complements the drilling down into the detailed Z component of your brain. So it can come up with a solution in order to actually make the world a better place and in order to contribute, to become a contributor. Yet, the problem that happened in our world over generations, because of generational pain and childhood hurt from our previous generations, our brains are not whole anymore. Our brains are not whole. We don't get stimulation that stimulates those muscles so that both the Z and the ZO works. And then what happens if you are having a too dominant one side, then you are lopsided. I call it you are basically half-brained because you are defaulting in the one way of reasoning. And then you only see a little part of the whole. And remember, holism, a human is a holistic being, and the whole is bigger than the sum of its parts. So if you can't see the whole picture, it means you're unconscious. That's why we call it, you haven't got the right awareness. You haven't got the right task consciousness, man consciousness, consciousness of the challenge. You can't see the bark from the trees. You are lopsided in your ability to respond. So you will respond in a warped way, and that is what most humans are doing. They haven't got an integration between the Z and the ZO, so they haven't got integrity. And that is why we have got so many vices instead of virtues. And just this brain dominance, faulty inheritance that we got is creating us to hardwire much more in many other ways. And we're going to still understand as we go on this journey, you're going to start understanding how the Z and the ZO hardwires, because if it's too dominant, then it creates its own little patterns of protection and of self-preservation that makes you a warped human full of hardwires. So the Z is the two-dimensional side of the brain that deals with task. It is the side of the brain that wants to do things according to the social construct. It wants to copycat the social construct. It wants to follow the rules. It wants to do the thing right. It wants to do the thing right, according to the rules. It wants to look after safety and security. It wants to comply to norms and standards. It wants to look at the symbols that people wear. Look, did you see my nice outfit? I'm So by the way, enduro bike rider here at Afriski. Can you see? So I've got a labeled type of branded. It likes the symbols and the branded things because it actually feels insecure because the Z side of the brain has got no creativity. It is an imitative thing. It's something that you put in a factory and it replicates the same product. That is why you will see in the Eastern countries the whole culture has already become more Z brain dominant over generations. And that is why they can take anybody that can innovate, that's a ZOR responder, that is a higher intelligence, and they can copycat it and they can replicate it. But none of these components, these intelligences of the brain is less or more important. They have to collectively work strong for you to be able to be like an automatic camera that zooms in when you get a challenge, to zoom in. What exactly is this challenge I'm getting? Is this what is this challenge? And then you've got to zoom out and see in the bigger picture, in looking at everything as a whole and connecting the dots. We call it the synthesizing side of the brain, is the ZOR side of the brain. So the ZOR side of the brain is the side that goes three-dimensional, but that side has got no end. It goes into 3 to 4-dimensional, and it goes into infinity. That's why humans are starting to do terrible things that you can't imagine, because when that ZOR side gets bigger and bigger, it just innovates, creates new things, because the ability to synthesize is the ability to take things out of the universe that already exists, and to create something new out of it. So you create patterns. You see, let's say you see a beautiful color in nature. Then you take that color in nature and you blend it into interior decorating, and then you create out of that something new that is in another sector or another field, and then becomes something new. And in that way, new things evolve and new things get established, and you can't believe how it worked. But it was from understanding the gravity principle, that you took the gravity principle and you worked it eventually into the rocket or the whatever, and you synthesized. And that is the three-dimensional side of the brain. The four-dimensional side of the brain is so the synthesizing and creative ability and innovation, entrepreneurial development, strategic, coming up with ideas and solutions, lies in the ZOR side of the brain. And then in the ZOR side of the brain also lies your ability to relate to humans, because if you can see the bigger picture, you can see humans. Now you can see, if you zoom out, then you can see all of us here, and you can see that we're loving each other, and there's smiles on our faces. You can see the body language. It's a relational intelligence. So the more your brain can zoom out, the more it can see the humans and the things in perspective, and the more living things become important. The more you care for environment, for living things, the more you love animals, the more you love little children, and the more you've got the emotion. When you're young, you're a bit emotional, but it is emotional intelligence that is just not mature yet. And you've got to grow that emotional intelligence so that you can stand the test of time in life, because life is not for sissies. You've got to be a tough person. You've got to get to tough love. That is why it is bad to give people handouts, because you are not helping them. You've got to have a tough love approach. You've got to put them into challenges, and so that they grow. And that is higher relational intelligence or emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is a small little part of the bigger intelligence called relational intelligence. So that is the 3-dimensional. 4-dimensional side of the ZOR side of the brain is where you actually can tap into spiritual, where you can believe not only in the concrete, because the Z side only deals with concrete. It deals with time, light, and matter. So it wants to have material things. It's the material world and the material girl and the material things and the material, and I'm only material and whatever, and look at me, and it's material, and it's tangible stuff. When you are getting more and more in your ZOR side, you are getting into the abstract. You're starting to get into understanding faith and belief. You will see people who are too Z orientated. They run out of faith because they haven't got the engine capacity, the intelligence that drives it. So it's not that they're bad. It's that side of the muscle is not developed, and they maybe inherited it from the previous generations, and of which is the truth, they did. And we've got to reactivate and restart that whole brain of the human so that everything can work, because you're the most amazing creature. You have no idea what amazing creature you are. I'm just checking we're over the time. Have you still got 5 more minutes for me? Put up your hand.
Yes.
Okay. So the Z and the ZOR is the intelligences in your higher brain, and I can prove to you that when all those intelligences are open and they're working, and those muscles, it's like my biceps and my triceps. You know, if you put me and you make me to do this push-ups or whatever, then you'll see that the one muscle is stronger than the other. Triceps is stronger than biceps. So it's the same. It's just like intelligences that is not, you inherited now a lazy brain dominance, if I can say it like that. It's lying there. Your potential is there to grow it and to develop it and to improve it. But if you don't even know, then you think it's your personality. It's like my brother, he had this little child and he's an engineer, and this little child, I was Father Christmas one year, and he said to me, "You are not, this is not Father Christmas. I don't believe in Father Christmas. That is my Auntie Vivian." And then I realized he's very Z-brain. He's concrete, he can't go in imaginative type of thinking. Then I said to his mother, "You better develop this child whole brain when he's still small. He's only 6 years old. If you don't develop a child from very small to be whole brain, you are going to skew him more and more, and he's going to default, and it's going to be more and more difficult for him to use the other components of his brain. He will have problems with relationships. He will have problems with all sorts of different other things if you are not developing a whole brain child." And that is what we need to understand, that the school systems, there's a very big mistakes where school systems are not understanding how to develop all those intelligences. Because if you can get it right, to open up that side of you, and you can break that default patterns, then you will never, ever be able to go into poverty. Unless if maybe you're really disabled and something seriously happens. But in the normal circumstances, you received everything to have sustainability, which is more the Z side of things, structured, systematic, step-by-step sums, calculating, doing your admin, checking that your budget is whatever. Sustainable well-being. Well-being is the ability to have at all times happiness, and that is what our brain has got the ability to do. We are wonderfully, wonderfully made, and that is what the Z and the ZOR is all about. And that is all for today. Thank you very much. Until I see you next Tuesday.
Thank you, Vivian.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Piers.
Everyone.